You wake up at 3 in the morning, and the thought that's been circling for weeks finally lands with its full weight. No one is coming. Not your partner, not your therapist, not your parents, not your friends, not the universe, not God, not some future version of yourself who finally has it all figured out. You have been waiting, sometimes consciously, mostly not, for someone or something to reach down and lift you out of this, to see what you truly need and provide it, to recognize your suffering and end it, to understand you so completely that the understanding itself becomes the solution. And in this moment, in the hollow darkness of your bedroom, you realize with a kind of cold clarity that this rescue you have been unconsciously organizing your entire life around is not coming. It has never been coming. The waiting itself has been the problem. You have been standing at the edge of your life, watching for the arrival of the help that would finally allow you to begin, and years have passed this way. The exhaustion you feel is not from the struggles you have faced, but from the constant low-level panic of waiting for intervention that never materializes, from the energy spent scanning the horizon for salvation, from the hope deferred that makes the heart sick. And now this terrible clarifying realization that if you are going to grow, if you are going to change, if you are going to become capable of living your life instead of enduring it, you are going to have to do something you have been avoiding with every fiber of your being. You are going to have to stop waiting and start. But what does that even mean? How do you save yourself when you feel fundamentally incapable, when the very fact that you are in this position seems like proof that you lack whatever essential ingredient is required? The question itself seems impossible, like being asked to lift yourself up by your own bootstraps, a physical and logical absurdity. And yet here we are, here you are, and the question is not going away just because it seems unanswerable. So let me be clear about what we are going to explore here, because it is not what you think. This is not going to be one of those talks about self-sufficiency or rugged individualism or pulling yourself up or becoming your own hero. Those narratives are just another form of the rescue fantasy, just dressed up in more acceptable clothing. What I want to examine is something far more fundamental and far more difficult. I want to look at what it actually means to grow when you can no longer outsource your development to others, when you must finally take responsibility not for being perfect or fixed or healed, but for being actively engaged in your own existence. And I want to look at why this moment, this terrible realization that no one is coming to save you, might be the most important threshold you ever cross. Let's start with why we seek rescue in the first place, because this is not a character flaw or a weakness. It is how we are designed. Every human being begins life in a state of absolute dependency. You could not survive your first years without someone saving you, constantly from everything. Hunger, cold, danger, discomfort, fear. Someone had to see your needs before you could articulate them, had to respond to your cries, had to keep you alive through sheer attentiveness. This is not metaphorical. The infant who is not saved dies. And so we learn at the very foundation of our being that survival depends on being seen, being responded to, being rescued. This is appropriate. This is necessary. A baby cannot save itself. A child cannot save itself. Dependency is not pathology in the early years, it is reality. But here is where it gets complicated. As we develop, we are supposed to gradually internalize the functions that others performed for us. We are supposed to slowly learn to see our own needs, to respond to our own discomfort, to regulate our own emotional states, to make decisions, to take action. This process is called growing up, and it is supposed to be gradual, supported, scaffolded by adults who help us build these capacities while still providing safety. But for most of us, this process was interrupted, inconsistent, or inadequate. Maybe our parents were too overwhelmed to teach us these things. Maybe they themselves never learned them. Maybe the world was too chaotic or dangerous for us to practice independence safely. Maybe we were punished for autonomy or rewarded for helplessness. The reasons vary, but the result is similar. We reach adulthood with some of these capacities underdeveloped, and we continue to unconsciously seek from others what we never learned to provide for ourselves. And here is the crucial part. This continued seeking is not just a passive wish. It becomes an organizing principle of our entire lives. We choose partners, who we hope will finally see us the way we needed to be seen. We find therapists who we hope will finally understand us into wellness. We chase spiritual teachers or practices that promise transformation. We wait for the right opportunity, the right circumstance, the right amount of money or success or recognition, believing that when these external conditions are met, we will finally be okay. We are not conscious of doing this. We do not say to ourselves, I am organizing my life around the hope of being rescued, but we are. And the terrible thing, the thing that must be understood, is that this very seeking prevents the growth we need. Because as long as we are waiting for someone else to save us, we cannot develop the capacity to engage actively with our own lives. As long as we are in the posture of the one who needs rescue, we cannot step into the stance of the one who acts. It is not that we are bad or weak for seeking help. It is that the specific form of seeking, the rescue fantasy, keeps us infantilized. It keeps us in the position of the child waiting for the parent to make things okay. And no amount of waiting will ever make you capable of what you are waiting to be capable of. Think about it this way. Imagine someone who wants to learn to swim but refuses to get in the water until they are already good at swimming. They read books about swimming. They watch videos, they talk to swimmers. They visualize swimming. They wait for the moment when they feel confident enough to try. But that moment never comes because confidence in swimming comes from swimming, not from preparation for swimming. The very thing they are doing to prepare is preventing them from developing the skill they seek. This is what the rescue fantasy does. You are waiting to feel capable before you act, but capability comes from action, not from waiting. You are waiting to feel strong before you face your life, but strength comes from facing your life, not from preparation. You are waiting for someone to make you ready, but readiness is not a state someone can give you. It is something that emerges through engagement. Now I need to pause here because I know what many of you are experiencing right now. You are recognizing yourself in this description and you are feeling something like panic or despair. You are thinking, yes, this is exactly what I have been doing. I have been waiting for rescue, and now you are telling me no one is coming. So what do I do? How do I just suddenly develop capacities I do not have? This feels impossible. This feels like being told to do something you are fundamentally unable to do. And I want you to hear this. That panic, that sense of impossibility, that is the feeling of the rescue fantasy being challenged. That is what it feels like when you start to question the fundamental organizing principle of your life. Of course it feels impossible. Of course it feels terrifying. You have never done this before. You have spent your entire life avoiding exactly this. And now I am asking you to turn and face it. But here is what you must understand. You are not as incapable as you think. The belief that you cannot do this is part of the rescue fantasy. It is what justifies the continued waiting. If you truly believed you were capable, you would have to confront why you are not acting. So you maintain the belief in your own fundamental inadequacy as protection against the responsibility of your own life. If this is touching something in you, if you are feeling the weight of years of waiting and hoping and seeking rescue that never came, I want you to do something for me. I want you to acknowledge it out loud. How long have you been waiting for someone to save you? When did you first realize that no one was coming? I want you to share in the comments because here is what happens when you name this. You stop being alone with it. You discover that thousands of other people have been waiting too, have been carrying this same secret hope that someone would finally see them and fix them and make everything okay. And that recognition that you are not uniquely broken or uniquely incapable, that changes something. So comment below and let me know. And if you cannot find the words for it, if it feels too vulnerable or too heavy, just type this. I have been waiting too, that is all. Just that acknowledgement. Because when you do, you give permission for everyone else who is watching this to admit it as well. Your honesty becomes an invitation for collective truth. So comment now. Tell me where you are in this. I read every single one and I want you to know you are not alone in this realization. Now let's look at what it actually means to grow when there is no one left to save you, because this is where most of the confusion lies. We hear the phrase save yourself, and we imagine it means becoming completely self-sufficient, needing no one, asking for nothing, handling everything alone with grim determination. We imagine it means being strong in that exhausting, performative way where you pretend you do not need support or connection or help. This is not what I mean. This is just another fantasy, the mirror image of the rescue fantasy, equally unrealistic and equally harmful. The fantasy of total independence is as childish as the fantasy of being saved, because actual mature human life requires both autonomy and interdependence. What I mean by saving yourself is something more subtle and more challenging. I mean taking full responsibility for your own development, your own growth, your own capacity to engage with reality. Not taking responsibility for being perfect or healed or undamaged, but taking responsibility for being an active agent in your own life, rather than a passive recipient of others' actions. Let me try to make this concrete, because it is easy to get lost in abstractions here. Taking responsibility for your own growth means several specific things. It means when you notice you are suffering, instead of waiting for someone else to notice and intervene, you acknowledge your own suffering to yourself. You say, "I am suffering," not as a complaint to the universe or an accusation that no one is helping, but as a simple recognition of your state. From this recognition, you can then ask, what do I need? Not who should give this to me, but what do I need? And then, this is the crucial part, you can take some action, however small, toward meeting that need yourself or asking clearly for specific help from others. This is very different from the passive, hoping that someone will intuit your need and provide for it without you having to ask or act. It means when you notice you are behaving in ways that harm you, instead of waiting for someone to stop you or save you from yourself, you acknowledge, "I am doing this. I am choosing this." Even if it does not feel like a choice, even if it feels compulsive or automatic, you take ownership of it as your action. From this ownership, you can then ask, why am I doing this? What need is this meeting even badly? What am I trying to accomplish through this behavior? And you can begin to explore other ways of meeting that need or accomplishing that goal. You do not wait for someone to figure this out for you. You investigate it yourself. It means when you encounter difficulties, instead of your first impulse being to seek someone who will make it easier or take it away, you first ask yourself, what is this difficulty asking of me? What capacity am I being called to develop? What am I learning by struggling with this? You stay with the difficulty long enough to let it teach you something. You do not seek rescue from the teaching, and yes, sometimes you will need help. Sometimes you will need support. Sometimes you will need someone with more skill or knowledge or experience to guide you. This is not what I am arguing against. What I am arguing against is the posture of helplessness, the stance of waiting for someone else to do your development for you. There is a huge difference between asking for specific help with a specific challenge while remaining actively engaged yourself and handing your entire life over to someone else and hoping they will fix it. The first is collaboration. The second is abdication. The philosopher Hannah Arendt wrote about something she called natality, the human capacity for new beginnings, the ability to initiate something new in the world through our actions. She argued that this capacity for beginning is what makes us human, what gives us dignity and freedom. But natality requires that we act, that we initiate, that we do not wait for permission or perfect conditions or external validation. We must be willing to start something even when we do not know how it will turn out, even when we are not guaranteed success, even when we are afraid. This is what it means to save yourself. Not to heroically fix everything wrong with you, but to begin, to take the first action, to stop waiting for the conditions that will make action safe or easy or guaranteed, and to act anyway. This is terrifying because when you act, you become responsible for the consequences of your action. When you wait for someone else to save you, you can blame them if it goes wrong. You can say, well, they failed me, they did not do enough, they did not see what I really needed. But when you act, when you initiate, when you begin, you must own the outcome. This is the responsibility that feels unbearable. This is what we have been avoiding. But here is the paradox, and this is what makes the whole thing both terrible and liberating at the same time. The responsibility you have been trying to avoid is already yours. You are already responsible for your life. You have always been responsible for your life. The rescue fantasy has not actually removed this responsibility. It has only obscured it. It has allowed you to pretend that someone else is or should be responsible for your well-being, your growth, your happiness, your development. But they are not. They never were. They could not be even if they wanted to be, because no one can live your life for you. No one can do your growing for you. No one can develop your capacities for you. This is not cruelty. This is the basic structure of individual human existence. You are the only one who can be you. And the energy you have spent waiting for rescue, the years you have spent in that passive, hopeful stance, that has been your life passing. That has been your one existence being organized around a fantasy instead of around reality. So when I say no one is coming to save you, I am not imposing a new burden. I am pointing out a reality that has always been true. And the liberation, if there is any, comes from finally accepting this reality and asking, okay, given that this is true, given that I am the one who must engage with my own life, what do I do now? What you do is you start where you are. Not where you wish you were, not where you think you should be, not where you would be if someone had saved you, where you actually are right now with all your limitations and wounds and underdeveloped capacities. You start there, and you take one action, not the perfect action, not the heroic action, just one small action in the direction of engaging more actively with your reality. Maybe that action is admitting to yourself that you have been waiting. Maybe it is asking yourself what you actually need right now. Maybe it is doing one small thing you have been avoiding. Maybe it is saying no to one thing you have been tolerating out of fear. Maybe it is saying yes to one thing you have been refusing out of fear. It does not matter what the specific action is. What matters is that it is your action, chosen by you, initiated by you, owned by you. What matters is that you are practicing agency instead of waiting for intervention. And here is what happens when you start to do this. When you start to take small actions instead of waiting for rescue. You discover that you are more capable than you thought. Not perfectly capable, not capable of everything, but more capable than you believed. You discover that you can survive your own choices, even when they do not work out perfectly. You discover that taking action, even imperfect action, feels different than waiting. It feels like being alive in a way that waiting never did. There is something enlivening about engaging directly with your life, even when it is difficult, even when it is painful. The pain of active engagement is qualitatively different from the pain of passive suffering. Active pain has movement in it. Passive pain is stagnant. Active pain is the pain of growth. Passive pain is the pain of stagnation disguised as waiting. Now I want to address the loneliness of this, because it is real and it is significant. When you stop waiting for rescue, when you start engaging actively with your own life, there is a period where you feel profoundly alone. This is the loneliness of maturity. It is the recognition that you are fundamentally separate, that your life is yours to live, that no one else can do it for you, no matter how much they love you. This is existential loneliness, and it is different from the loneliness of isolation. Isolation is being disconnected from others. Existential loneliness is recognizing your separateness even in connection. It is understanding that even the people who love you most, even the people who want to help you, cannot ultimately save you because they cannot live your life. They have their own lives to live. This loneliness can feel like abandonment at first, especially if you have been operating under the rescue fantasy. It can feel like everyone has let you down, like no one really cares, like you are truly alone in a hostile universe. But this feeling, while real, is a misinterpretation. It is the child part of you mourning the loss of the fantasy that someone could and should take care of everything for you. It is grief for the parent you needed but did not have, or did not have enough. This grief is legitimate. Feel it. But do not let it convince you that the reality of your separateness means you are unloved or unsupported, or that connection is impossible. Because here is what is also true. When you stop seeking rescue and start engaging actively with your own life, you become capable of actual connection in a way you never were before. The rescue fantasy creates a specific kind of relationship dynamic. You relate to others primarily as potential rescuers or as failures to rescue. You are always evaluating whether they are giving you what you need, whether they are seeing you correctly, whether they are doing enough. This is exhausting for both parties, and it is not real intimacy. It is need dressed up as connection. But when you take responsibility for your own development, when you stop waiting for others to save you, you can relate to them as fellow humans rather than as potential saviors. You can appreciate them for who they are rather than resenting them for who they are not. You can ask clearly for what you need without the hidden demand that they intuit it. You can offer help without the hidden expectation of rescue in return. You can be together in your separateness. This is mature love. This is actual intimacy. It is only possible between two people who have accepted responsibility for their own existence. If what I am sharing here is landing for you, if you are recognizing patterns you have been living unconsciously, consider subscribing to this channel. I explore these territories every week, and I would be honored to have you as part of this community of people who are learning to see clearly, who are willing to question their assumptions, who understand that growth requires looking at difficult truths. This is not about entertainment or feeling good temporarily. This is about genuine transformation through understanding. So if that resonates, hit the subscribe button. I will be here. Let me give you an example of what this looks like in practice, because I think examples help make abstract concepts concrete. Imagine someone who's been depressed for years. They have tried therapy, they have tried medication, they have tried exercise and diet changes and meditation and everything anyone has ever suggested. Nothing has worked or nothing has worked permanently, and they are exhausted. They are waiting for the magic intervention, the right therapist or the right medication, or the right understanding that will finally lift the depression. They are in the rescue posture. Now imagine this person has the realization we are talking about. No one is coming to save me. This realization does not cure their depression. That is important to understand. This is not about positive thinking or pulling yourself up or just deciding to be happy. The depression is still there, but something shifts in their relationship to it. Instead of waiting for someone to take it away, they start to ask different questions. What is this depression? What is it trying to tell me? What am I avoiding by being depressed? What would I have to face if I were not depressed? What am I getting from this state, even though I hate it? They start to investigate their own experience with curiosity, instead of just suffering passively. And they start to take small actions, not to fix the depression, but to engage with life anyway. Maybe they notice they have not been outside in days, and they take a walk, not because they think it will cure them, but because they are responsible for their own body, and their body needs movement. Maybe they notice they have been isolating, and they call a friend not to be rescued by the friend, but because they are responsible for their own need for connection, and connection requires action. Maybe they notice they hate their job, and they start looking for other options, not because a new job will fix everything, but because they are responsible for the conditions of their life, and they have agency to change conditions they can change. Do you see the difference? In the rescue posture, everything is about waiting for the intervention that will transform the state. In the active posture, it is about taking responsibility for engaging with life even while in the difficult state. And slowly, through this engagement, through this taking of small actions, through this exercise of agency, something does shift. Not because the actions are magic, but because action itself changes your relationship to your experience. You are no longer just a victim of your depression. You are someone who is depressed and also taking actions. You are someone who is struggling and also engaging. You have not transcended your limitations. You have just stopped using your limitations as a reason to abdicate responsibility for your life. This is what growth looks like when no one is coming to save you. It is not dramatic transformation. It is small, consistent, often uncomfortable engagement with reality. And this brings us to another crucial point. Growth, real growth, is not what we think it is. We have this idea that growth means becoming someone else, someone better, someone more capable, someone who does not have the problems we have. We think growth is about reaching a destination where we are finally okay, finally fixed, finally good enough. This idea of growth is still part of the rescue fantasy. It imagines a future rescued version of yourself. But real growth is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming more fully yourself, which means accepting and integrating all the parts of yourself you have been trying to escape or transcend or have someone else fix. It means making peace with your limitations while still pushing against them. It means understanding that you will never be done growing, that there is no arrival point, that the work of being human is ongoing until you die. This is not depressing, this is liberating, because if growth is not about reaching a destination, then you cannot fail at it. You can only engage with it or not engage with it. You can only show up for it or abdicate from it. And showing up, even imperfectly, even with resistance, even with fear, that is enough. That is what it means to save yourself. Not to fix yourself, but to show up for yourself. Hannah Arendt talked about the examined life, the life where you pay attention to what you are doing and why, where you do not just live automatically or reactively, but with some degree of awareness and intentionality. This examined life requires that you take yourself seriously as an agent, as someone whose choices matter, as someone who is responsible for the shape of their existence. It is easier not to examine. It is easier to say, this is just how I am, or this is what happened to me, or this is what others made me, and to live from that place of determined causation. But the examined life asks, yes, this is your history, and these are your wounds, and these are your limitations, and also what are you going to do now? How are you going to engage with this reality? What choices are available to you, even small ones, even limited ones? This examination is not about judgment. It is not about blame. It is about agency. It is about recognizing that even in constrained circumstances, even with limited options, you still have some room to move, some capacity to choose, some ability to influence the direction of your life. And the more you exercise this capacity, the more it develops. Agency is like a muscle. It atrophies with disuse and strengthens with practice. So when I say no one is coming to save you, what I am really saying is that you have more agency than you are currently exercising, and the reason you are not exercising it is because you are still organizing your life around the hope of intervention, and I am inviting you, with all the compassion I can muster for how terrifying this is, to let that hope go, not because hope is bad, but because this particular hope, the hope for rescue, is keeping you passive. Let it go and see what happens. See what becomes possible when you stop waiting and start engaging. See who you become when you take responsibility, not for being perfect, but for being present to your own life. See what it feels like to act instead of hope, to initiate instead of wait, to take ownership of your existence even though you did not choose all of its conditions. And here is the final paradox I want to leave you with. When you stop seeking rescue, when you take responsibility for your own growth, when you become actively engaged with your own life, you often find that help comes more easily. Not because the universe rewards independence, but because you are asking for help differently. You are asking for specific assistance with specific challenges while remaining the active agent of your own development. You are not handing your life over. You are not asking someone to do your growing for you. You are asking for collaboration, for support, for guidance while maintaining ownership of your journey. And people respond differently to this. They feel less burdened. They feel less responsible for fixing you. They can offer what they can offer without feeling like they are failing if it is not enough. The relationship becomes more balanced, more reciprocal, more human. So paradoxically, by giving up the rescue fantasy, you become more capable of receiving genuine help. By accepting that no one can save you, you become more able to be supported. This is not something you can do strategically. You cannot pretend to take responsibility in order to manipulate others into helping you more. But it is something that emerges naturally when the shift is real. Let me speak directly to those of you who are at this threshold right now, who are feeling the terror and the possibility of what I am describing. You have been waiting a long time, maybe your whole life. You have been scanning the horizon for the person or the circumstance or the intervention that would finally make everything okay. And you are exhausted from waiting. You are exhausted from hoping. You are exhausted from the disappointment when rescue does not come. I know, I understand. And I am telling you something that might sound cruel, but is actually compassionate. No one is coming. Not because you are not worthy of being saved, but because that is not how human growth works. You cannot be saved from your own development. You cannot be rescued from the necessity of living your own life. This is not abandonment. This is the structure of existence. And the moment you accept it, really accept it, not with resignation, but with recognition, something profound shifts. You stop being a victim waiting for rescue and become an agent engaged with reality. You stop being a child hoping for the parent to fix everything and become an adult participating in your own existence. This is what maturity is. This is what growing up means, no matter how old you are. It means recognizing that your life is yours, that no one else can live it for you, and that you have the capacity, however limited, however imperfect, to engage with it actively rather than passively. The growth you are seeking, the transformation you are longing for, it does not come from finally finding the right person or method or understanding that saves you. It comes from you engaging directly with your life, taking small actions, making choices, exercising agency, accepting responsibility, investigating your experience, challenging your patterns, facing your fears, one small step at a time. It comes from showing up. That is all, just showing up for your own life instead of waiting for someone else to show up for it. And I promise you this, you are more capable than you think. You have been capable all along. The rescue fantasy has been obscuring your own capacity from you. It has been telling you that you need something external in order to begin, when in fact everything you need to begin is already here. Not everything you need to finish, not everything you need to do it perfectly, but everything you need to begin, and beginning is enough, beginning is everything. So let me ask you one more time, how long have you been waiting for someone to save you? What would it mean to stop waiting today? What is one small action you could take right now, just one, that would be engaging with your life instead of waiting for rescue? Share your answer in the comments. Not because I need you to, but because naming this, declaring it even to strangers on the internet, is itself an act of agency. It is saying, I am here, I am struggling with this, I am beginning to take ownership of my life. And that act of declaration, that willingness to be seen in your struggle and your strength that creates community, that lets everyone else know they are not alone. So comment below. Tell me what action you are going to take. Or tell me what has been keeping you from taking action. Or tell me how long you have been waiting. Whatever feels true. I read everything. And I want you to know this community is here for you, not to save you, but to witness your journey, to encourage your agency, to remind you that you are not alone in this work of becoming responsible for your own life. You are watching this because somewhere inside you already knows the truth I am speaking. You know that no one is coming. You have probably known for a while. You have been avoiding the knowing, hoping you were wrong, hoping that maybe this time, maybe this person, maybe this thing would be different. But you know. And the reason you are still here, still listening, is because some part of you is ready to stop avoiding and start facing. Some part of you is ready to let go of the rescue fantasy and embrace the terrifying, liberating reality of your own agency. Trust that part. Listen to it. Let it guide you into the next moment of your life. Not the next phase, not the next chapter, just the next moment. What does your life need from you right now? Not what do you wish someone would give you, but what does your life need from you? That is the question. That is always the question. And you are the only one who can answer it. Not with words, but with action, with presence, with engagement, with the courage to show up for your own existence even when you are afraid, even when you do not know what you are doing, even when you feel incapable. You show up anyway. That is how you grow when there is no one left to save you. You show up, you act, you engage, you take responsibility, you begin. Again and again and again you begin. This is your life. No one else can live it. No one else can grow for you. No one is coming to save you. And that, as terrible as it sounds, is actually the beginning of your freedom.